Hi Dave, what was your motivation to come to the summit today?
Well, I thought it was really important that we bring peace and anti-militarism into a conference like this, because people are very concerned about economics and about the environment, and it's all linked with militarism, basically. People aren't recognizing those links so much. So we have to make that a high profile, give that a higher profile in people's campaigns. The military is responsible for so much problems with the environment, with climate. It contributes enormously to climate change. So we must make people realize that, and we need to cut spending so that money can be spent on other things.
So is there a movement in Great Britain against war? Is it big?
Yes, there's a movement against war. Stop the War has been going on for quite some time. You know, it mobilized millions of people really in the Gulf Wars, against the Gulf Wars, and it's been active ever since. We were able to stop originally the bombings in Libya anyway. Unfortunately, that didn't really carry on. But yeah, there's a big movement, and I think it's growing again. I mean, it did drop off a bit after we failed to stop the Gulf Wars, but it's growing again, and young people especially are realizing that war is not the answer to anything. It's never been the answer to anything. So we have to do the alternative things.
And do you have an idea how to motivate even more young people to come to
I think we just have to keep telling them, about things, the things they don't read about in newspapers, the things they don't see on the television. We have to keep telling them the world as it is, not as the newspapers or the media present it. And I think they're coming to realize that thing that they get from TV are distractions. They're not actually real news. They're not really what is happening in the world. So we just need to get information to them, and also kind of, it's their world that's being built here. So they should have much more of a say in how it's built, and much more of an understanding of what's going on. So we must really need to make sure they get that.
And do the people know about the success of the Ban Treaty now?
I think it's, again, a growing awareness, not so many yet. We've tried at CND in Britain, we've tried to make that clear, and of course ICANN has as well. So people who are linked into the peace networks, if you like, the anti-nuclear networks, they will all be aware of the importance of this particular treaty. Other people might not know anything about it. It's not been on the news, it's not been in the media, except for a couple of short paragraphs. So we've got to try and get it out there, got to try and make it clear that this is what's happening. Some politicians have been, from Britain, we've had Fabian Hamilton, who's the Labour Party person for peace and disarmament. He was there at the first set of talks. And then also Caroline Lucas from the Green Party, the MP from the Green Party, she came to the second lot. So MPs are going to be aware, some of them anyway, and we have a parliamentary CND group where we'll be talking about this and how we can push our government to be part of that treaty. We tried to get them there in the first place, but they wouldn't go. So we've got to try and make sure that they're aware of the importance of signing the treaty.
Yeah. So what is the reason that the station who really have nuclear weapons don't want to support the Ban Treaty?
Basically because it means they'll have to get rid of them, I suppose. And I don't quite know, well, I do understand why. I think they consider it as, a status symbol. I hope anyway that none of the nuclear weapons states are actually thinking of using them, but they're more there to give them some kind of status, make them different from other states. And that's certainly, I think, the case in Britain. I can't see any other reason why we have nuclear weapons. It doesn't make sense. But it's a big price to pay for status. £200 billion to renew Trident. It's a huge sum of money just to say that you've got them. It doesn't make a lot of sense, really.
Yeah.
So, so we're hoping we can do something. People are scared to move. I understand nuclear weapon states are scared to make the first move. But maybe with this treaty we can get states that just host nuclear weapons rather than possess them themselves. Maybe they can make the start. Yeah. And Britain is in a good place to make a start too.
Yeah. And what are British people thinking about the drone war?
I think people, now the problem there is that people tend to forget these things unless they appear in the news more and more. And they haven't appeared much in the news recently. But we still have a very active campaign, a drone campaign, anti-drone campaign, and a network of supporters and campaigners who are working on the issue still, challenging it in the courts, in the government, because it's still not clear exactly what motivates some of the strikes that are happening and where the information comes from and all of that kind of thing. So there are lots of things to make clear and try and understand and try and challenge, because they're not doing what they say they're doing. They're not stopping terrorism, they're creating terrorism.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's another thing that doesn't make any sense. But, so we're still working on that.
And how could such a peace movement get rid of the military bases? What shall we do?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Again, I think one of the major things we have to do is to make people realize what they do, what they're part of. And these 800 US military bases, and I know Britain has military bases too, not so many, I don't know exact number, but it will have some in Cyprus, for example, and other places in I should find out. You see, that shows how ignorant we are about how many military bases there are. But certainly a major one is Diego Garcia, which is an island supposedly protected by the UK, but handed over to the US for a military base. And the people there have been campaigning for years to try and get back to their island. And the British law courts, the government, has prevented them from doing this for many years. So, there are all kinds of issues. Some people know about, some people do not know about.
Yeah.
So we heard recently that US bombers had landed, nuclear-capable bombers, had landed again in Fairford in Britain, and we're not sure what that means. Does that mean they're coming back permanently or what? We don't know. So, there are all kinds of issues arising. We thought that the number of bases in Britain was going down, but what's happening is they're building up the intelligence gathering bases. They're spending billions of dollars on enlarging those and getting more deeply into the intelligence gathering community through that. So that's all helping the militarists, the militarists all around Europe and around the world. So we've got to make sure people realize that too. They could be living next door to a base which actually is causing or helping to manage a war that's going on thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
And they don't always realize that.
Yeah. So, did Corbyn ever talk about the drone war?
I think, yes, certainly. I mean, he's mentioned that before. He fully understands that. He was chair of Stop the War, of the Stop the War coalition before he became leader of the Labour Party. I think he had to give some of these things up. Yeah. He had to give up being vice chair of CND, but he's a vice president of CND now. But as chair of Stop the War, he would be very much aware of what the drone activity meant. Yeah.
So he's the new hope of the peace movement, of the British peace movement.
He's always been one of our hopes, but now he's bigger than usual. Yeah, because he has much more influence now, and also he's motivating and inspiring lots more young people to understand the issues and to get involved in politics.
Yeah.
And that can only be a good thing.
And will he one day get the real president?
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister?
Well, we kind of hope so, yeah. I mean, it's possible. The current government is failing on all kinds of issues. It has so many problems.
Yeah.
They won't want to be calling another election yet.
Yeah.
They can't, really, because they'd lose. I'm sure they'd lose. So we just, we hope that they have to call one soon, and that Jeremy will become the new Prime Minister. Yeah.
Are there existing alternative media in Britain?
Not so much, not really. The BBC used to be something you could rely on, but not anymore really. It's gone. It's gone. We have a couple of newspapers. The Guardian maybe is a bit more liberal in the liberal sense, but even that came out really hard against Jeremy Corbyn. It's lightening up a bit now. They've realised he's not, he's maybe winning votes, but we don't have much. We have the old Communist Party newspaper, the Morning Star, which is very good at reporting peace activity, but it doesn't have a huge circulation. Although it's available in most stores, I don't think people tend to read that unless you're an activist yourself. But there's not a great deal really. I mean, the only way we can get interviews is on Russia Today or something like that. I think it's the same everywhere around Europe really.
And is the importance of the US base Rammstein known in Great Britain?
Not enough, no, not enough. We had a great opportunity last year. Connie Schmidt came from Rammstein. He came to a demonstration we had at Menwith Hill, which is a base in Britain, and also went to Croughton, which is linked to Rammstein specifically. So people came a bit more aware of what Rammstein is. I mean, we've tried to emphasise its role in missile defence because it's the headquarters for European missile defence as well as everything else. And that's linked again with two bases in Britain that we know of, Menwith Hill and Fylingdales, near where I live. So we've got direct links there really, but not many people know about it. I think it's growing, but there's not enough.
So you would support the protest against Rammstein in Germany?
Absolutely, it's really important. I was there last year and it was a great protest. It rained, but that didn't put people off. It was a good spirit and surrounded the base with people. So, and it's a nice place to visit, but it's also very important to be there to show your presence and show that you don't want these things around.